All right, let's talk about Charles Dickens, but maybe not the Dickens you think you know. We're going to dive into a pretty bold claim from a major critic, the idea that Dickens's least popular novel, Hard Times, might actually be his absolute best. Yeah, you heard that right. So let's get into it.
I mean, just think about that for a second. We've all heard of Oliver Twist or Great Expectations. They're classics for a reason. But what if the real masterpiece has been hiding in plain sight this whole time? A book that's tighter, sharper, and maybe even more powerful than all the others.
And here's the guy who made that explosive claim, F.R. Leavis. Now, Leavis wasn't just some random book reviewer. He was a giant in literary criticism. And when he said this, he was really throwing down the gauntlet. He's not just saying Hard Times is a good book. He's arguing it's a completely serious work of art, something he thinks the other more famous novels aren't. So how in the world did he get there?
Well, to even begin to understand Leavis's point, you have to throw out your expectations for a typical Dickens novel. He argues that Hard Times belongs in its own special category. He calls it a moral fable. So, what the heck is a moral fable? Think of it like this. It's a story where nothing is wasted. Every character, every conversation, every single event is there for a very specific reason, to serve one big overarching message. There's no fluff, it's all muscle.
And this is really the key difference. We love Dickens's other books because they feel so full of life, right? They're sprawling, a bit messy, with characters who feel like they could just walk off the page. But Leavis says Hard Times does the exact opposite on purpose. It's incredibly disciplined, like a perfectly engineered machine, where every single piece is crucial to making the whole thing work.
Okay, so if it's a finely tuned machine, what's its purpose? What's the message? According to Leavis, the entire book is built around one central battle, a war between facts and fancy.
And this guy, Thomas Gradgrind, is the general of Team Fact. These are literally the first lines of the book. It's this cold, rigid philosophy that says the only things that matter in life are things you can measure, weigh, and price. If you can't quantify it, it's worthless.
So you've got these two worlds just colliding. On one side, you have the grim industrial world of Coketown, run by Gradgrind's philosophy of pure hard facts. And on the other side, a traveling circus, a world of imagination, wonder, and human connection. Everything Gradgrind thinks is a complete waste of time.
And the embodiment of this fancy is a young circus girl named Sissy Jupe. And just listen to that language Dickens uses. Leavis points out this is pure poetry. Sissy doesn't just stand in the sun, she absorbs it. She draws life from it. She represents everything natural and vital that Gradgrind's philosophy tries to stamp out.
And it's not just Sissy. The whole circus crew stands for values that are completely alien in Coketown. Yeah, they're skilled performers, but their real value is in their kindness, their community, their readiness to help and pity one another. It's a type of human worth that you could never, ever calculate on a spreadsheet.
Now this is where Dickens really twists the knife. To show just how bankrupt this facts-only philosophy is, he doesn't just focus on the suffering of the poor. No, he shows us how Gradgrind's system completely destroys his own children.
This is the moment it all starts to unravel. Gradgrind has arranged for his daughter, Louisa, to marry a rich, awful factory owner named Bounderby. And she asks him this simple, devastatingly human question. And his entire worldview, his whole life's work, it has no answer.
And here's his response. It's just tragic. He can't talk about love or happiness or what she wants. All he can do is tell her to treat her own marriage like a business transaction. He reduces this huge, life-altering decision to a cold, heartless calculation.
And this is the result. Louisa's miserable marriage eventually falls apart, and she runs back to her father, literally collapsing at his feet, and her words are a direct verdict on his entire life. It's the final, crushing proof that a life without feeling, without fancy, isn't just empty, it's completely unlivable.
But the ultimate, most delicious irony comes from Gradgrind's star pupil, Bitzer. When Gradgrind's son gets into trouble, he pleads with Bitzer for help. But Bitzer, who is the perfect product of Gradgrind's system, just turns that cult logic right back on him. A heart? That's just a pump. Gratitude? The education was a transaction that's now complete. It's more profitable to betray you. It's the system perfectly devouring its own creator. Chilling stuff.
So, okay, the story is an incredible takedown of a dangerous philosophy. But for Leavis, the real genius of Hard Times isn't just what it says, but how it says it. The artistry is the whole point.
Leavis says the book's power comes from its language. He calls it a richly poetic art. Basically, every sentence is loaded with meaning, with irony, with symbolism. It's concentrated, it's potent, in a way that Dickens's other longer novels just aren't.
And he points to all these tools Dickens is using. The dialogue is razor-sharp and ironic. The characters, like Sissy and Bitzer, are more than just people. They're powerful symbols. The way he describes the grimy industrial town of Coketown, it just sticks with you. All these elements work together to create this unique, powerful, artistic experience. And you know, maybe no one says it better than the often overlooked Mrs. Gradgrind, right before she dies. She knows there's something vital to being human that you can't classify or stick in a textbook. It's not an ology. It's that unmeasurable something that her husband's philosophy is completely erased, and it's what has doomed their family.
Okay, so let's bring it all home. What's the final verdict here? And why should a book written in the 1850s still matter to us today? Well, as it turns out, its message might be more urgent now than ever before.
The final moral of the story comes from the most wonderful, unlikely source, the kind-hearted, lisping circus owner, Mr. Sleary, and he just nails it. He says, "There's something else in the world besides self-interest. Call it love, call it kindness. It has its own logic, a way of calculating that has nothing to do with profit and loss."
So this is the heart of Leavis's argument. Hard Times is a masterpiece because of its focus and its discipline, not in spite of it. It's a perfectly constructed work of art, a powerful poetic fable that declares war on any way of thinking that puts numbers ahead of people and calculation ahead of compassion.
And that really leaves us with one final big question. Dickens was writing about the dawn of the industrial age. But in our world of big data, algorithms, and constant optimization, what are the things we can't measure? What are those subtle essences of humanity that don't fit into our data sets? And what's the real cost if we forget them?